So we'll get started with the new development this week. It's a legislative request that Governor Beshear is continuing to beat the drum on in the lead up to the 2026 session. Over the past year, Beshear has worked to generate support for pre-K for all through a series of town halls and messaging from local leaders, including several Republican county judge executives. On Thursday, Beshear announced 43 local and regional chambers of commerce had written the General Assembly endorsing the proposal to grow Kentucky's workforce.
This has the most bipartisan support I've ever seen. But today you also see that it's the business community's #1 ask in this session. It's what they say. They need to have the workforce to compete. And for really the first time, we're now seeing other states use this against us when we're competing for economic development projects.
We're very cognizant of the fact that child care can be an impediment to people entering into the workforce. In this, we have some real success stories about how local people have done it. I also understand that a lot of phone calls have been made to county judges and the Chamber of Commerce and other people saying, hey, you all need to get on board with this. I'm not going to say who made those calls, but you all can figure out who made the calls, because we got the calls. Well, what do we do? Well, we're going to set policy based on what we think is good policy, not political arm twisting.
Universal pre-K has been a non-starter among Republican leaders for several sessions for several reasons. Some have argued the overall cost or the concern of pushing out private providers. Senator Thomas, let's start the conversation with you here. Governor Beshear did not clearly say at his press conference on Thursday if he's spoken with leadership on his proposal, but he says he's working with both lawmakers on the Republican and Democratic side to bring forward a proposal. How do you get Republican leaders on board with this, and what does it look like?
Well, boy, let me first say this. I'm encouraged listening to the segment you had with Senator Stivers, that he's now open to the idea. I've always found Senator Stivers to be a reasonable person. I think we work relatively well together. So I'm encouraged that he's open-minded on this. Bodie, there are now 26 states plus the District of Columbia that offer universal pre-K. Okay? That means Kentucky's in the bottom half of those states that don't have it. It works. You've got 5 states out of 7 that are contiguous with us. Only right now, only Tennessee and Indiana are the only 2 states that don't have universal pre-K. Indiana's considering it, okay? So, you know, we're past time now to do it, Bodie. And Bodie, in terms of a price tag, it's really not that expensive. We're talking about $125 million, Bodie, to do that. You know, even with all the tax cuts that we've had over the past 3 or 4 years, there's still money enough in our budget without even touching, Bodie, the rainy day fund to do this. And we're projecting a $300 million increase in the 27-28 fiscal year as well. So there's not only money this year, there's money next year to do this. Universal pre-K gives children a head start in school. It enhances graduation rate from high school, graduation from college, healthcare outcomes for children when they reach adults. It's a win-win-win for Kentucky, and we need to do this. And I'm glad to see that President Stivers is open to the idea of having universal pre-K. I'm glad to see the chamber is behind it. It makes a lot of sense for a lot of good reasons.
Well, let's ask Representative Roberts, where do you stand in this debate? There's a lot of different opinions among Republican lawmakers here. We had Senator Carroll's Horizons Act proposal last budget session. That didn't end up making it to the finish line. Again, there's a lot of different mindsets in this. What's yours?
My perspective on this is that there's a lot of push for universal pre-K, but what I'm hearing from parents, what I'm hearing from communities is that they are looking for full-day, full-time, year-round child care that from communities and from entities that they know and that they trust. And I haven't seen any specific plan that shows how we can truly implement this on what they say the dollar amount is. When we look to the actual proposal, we have to accommodate for a few considerations. One, for early education, there is a lower ratio of students to teachers that are required under the law, so we have to contemplate that staffing issue. 2, we have to look at the school buildings themselves right now. Many of them are busting at the seams with student population. So I don't believe that that is the right solution. I believe that it's getting the government out of the way of child care is the adequate one. And to the idea of graduation rates, high school preparedness, one of the largest studies that was ever conducted was conducted by an individual at Vanderbilt University who was a staunch advocate for universal pre-K. He studied about 3,000 students mixed with those who went to pre-K, those who didn't go to pre-K. And what you actually saw was increased kindergarten preparedness for pre-K students, but you saw a drop in performance after the 6th grade. What you ultimately saw was that students in pre-K were more likely to need special education by the time they hit 6th grade. So I don't see an actual causal benefit on that, especially when we look to what is in the best interest for these families, especially when we take the workforce argument. What they need is something that is full-time, that is year-round. And the question is, since preschools generally follow the school year, what are we going to do whenever the school's let out in May? So there's a lot of practical concerns that I have about this, on top of the fiscal issues.
A little less than a minute here, guys. We'll have to get some quick answers here. I see you wanting to respond very quickly.
I do.
Senator Thomas.
First of all, let me say that the Vanderbilt study that was mentioned has been widely discredited. I mean, experts from both sides of the political spectrum have said that that study is wrong. Secondly, Bodie, the universal pre-K for 4-year-olds replaces what parents have to pay to the tune of somewhere between $7,000 and $9,000 a year to now have to put 4-year-olds in child care. That's saving parents $7,000 to $9,000 a year by now having them go to school free of charge. In terms of schools, yes, some schools aren't ready for it, but in terms of the size of the school, but we can compensate that for 2 or 3 years, still get those kids in school and get them learning right away.
Final quick word before we move on.
Nothing from the government is free. Everything takes tax dollars, and when you look at pre-K education that is public, a general average one is about $12,500 per student. So the estimates that are being relied upon for this estimate is a very conservative estimate that I don't believe would actually be the true cost of it. As to the performance issue, I mean, the results speak for themselves on this, so I do have deep concerns about the actual practical benefit to the student.
A lot of debate to play out as we go into the session. All right, thanks, guys. Kentucky needs tens of thousands